Welcome to ASHLEE Marie. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of Halloween Baking Championship. It was so much fun to film. We were all given tarot cards. I was given the ghost, and then we had to recreate it in some kind of dessert. And so I recreated my card by making this brownie, chocolate brownie with peanut butter frosting ghost, then with fondant decorations. For the base of this dessert, I'm using my perfect chocolate brownie recipe. So it's a little bit salty. I really love this dessert. So to begin with, we need to melt the chocolate and the butter together. So if you have a double broiler, use that. I don't, so I kind of make my own ghetto version of a double broiler, which is a pan of water, and I've turned this on, and we're gonna get that water to boil. And then you put a metal bowl over that. Now you wanna make sure that your bowl base isn't touching the water. If the boiling water is actually touching the bowl, that's gonna cause some problems. So you wanna make sure there's nice space. So use a shallow bowl, not one that's super deep and down inside. All right, so we have 3 different kinds of chocolate between dark and unsweetened and bittersweet, and then butter, and we're gonna let that melt. In the meantime, we're going to take our flour and add some baking powder and some cocoa. And now we want to add the salt. Now the salt that I'm using is this fleur de sel. You want to measure out the amount that you're going to use. And you can see that it has some really big chunks in there. And for the most part, a lot of that is going to be okay, but just to make sure that somebody, I'm not saying who, doesn't bite into it and either get no salt at all or get too much salt, you kind of just want to lightly crush this. Just use the back of a spoon and just kind of break some of that up. And that will help a lot. All right. And the other trick to getting something like this really well incorporated is instead of just pouring it in, if you pour it in from up high and taller, you'll actually break it up as it falls down. So not only does it look way cooler, you know, to sprinkle from up high like this, but there's actually also a purpose for it. All right, now we're gonna whisk that together. And set that aside as well. So now we have our dry ingredients set aside, we have our chocolate melting, and now it's time to come over here and make the rest of the base. So I have eggs in here already, and I'm gonna add sugar, white sugar, and brown sugar, lightly packed, and some vanilla. Turn that on. Our chocolate is all melted and cooled slightly, so we're gonna add it to this batter now. Put it on low. And now we're gonna start adding the flour just a little bit at a time. And this is kind of a thick batter. So you're gonna have to spread it out once you get it in the pan. Our brownies are cooled and it's time to carve them. So this is the tarot card ghost that I was given. So what I did is I took some parchment paper and I scaled it up. So I took the pan I'm gonna put them on and made sure it would fit in there, and also of course made sure it actually fit the brownies that I was cutting, and then just sketched something rough. So I'm going to pull the brownies out. Templates lay down. I'm gonna mark like the important stuff, like the top first. And then as you go down the side, because it's a nice straight line, you can actually get it much further apart. And then anything that's important, like this curve on the side, make sure you do a couple more notches. So now as I pull that away, you can see all the dots that are there. So I'm gonna start by just kind of cutting off the larger areas because I can get detailed later. let's get started on some peanut butter frosting. Peanut butter pairs really well with chocolate, and it's going to give us the structure that we need to build up the shape of the body and the draping before we put the fondant on. So, peanut butter, butter, and some whipping cream. All right, so we've got this nice soft buttery peanut butter, and now it's time to turn it into frosting by adding sugar. So we're gonna add some powdered sugar. I add a couple cups at a time and then just see how it goes from there. I have just this flat, I don't even know what to kind of call this kind of tip. It's like one of those big, huge frosting tips, except little, miniature, and it's gonna help us get the details. So first, I'm just gonna do one layer of everything. And the great thing about this tip is that it has these teeth that kind of help grip whatever you're putting it down on, so I don't have to worry about it getting peeled off. As you imagine a drape on a body, you know, and how it covers, it's not going to be as forward here as it is over your arms. So kind of setting where all the drape lines go, we're definitely going to want to build up the head and the body and leave these sides a little bit thinner. All right, so I've tried to build up distinct layers using the frosting, and now we're gonna roll out some fondant and lay it over the top. Now, you can hand roll out everything that you do, but especially when you're trying to go really thin, that can be difficult. So I'm using my pasta roller. It's one of my favorite things to use when I'm trying to get thin and detailed fondant strips. So to start with, you need it to be thin enough to go through the machine. And then you don't want it to be tacky or sticky at all. So you're gonna take a mixture of cornstarch and powdered sugar and powder it down. Right. Now, when you're using a pasta roller, you either need two people, somebody to crank it and then somebody to feed it through and pull it out, or you need a motor. I just got this. It was my birthday present to myself. It is awesome. All right, anyway. So this is just the 0 setting, and you can see it's actually pretty thin. Now we're gonna take our stencil and our toothpick, and I'm actually not gonna poke holes through this time. I'm just gonna I'm just going to use it and kind of just put pressure around it. Remember, you don't need to include the legs in this one. All right, you can see that created just a little bit of an indent in there. Grab your small sharp knife. And because we're working with fondant that's still soft, you can kind of stretch it where you need to as you're working. I think I want it a little bit thicker up here. I need a little bit more over on this side. Notice how I'm not pressing it down yet. I don't want it to adhere itself to that frosting until I feel like I have it in the place that I want it. Just make sure if you get any frosting in your fingernails, you clean it up before you move on. All right. All right, so I'm happy now, and I'm gonna start pressing him down into shape. Around that long face. around the shoulder and down the arms. I'm giving myself those wrinkles from the body and the draping. Notice I'm bringing my hands from the top down so I can create more realistic looking drapery. Some fondant that you've colored into flesh tones of some kind, and you want to make a tube. Cut this tube in half. All right, this is about the right size. So I'm going to take one side of this tube and start turning into the foot. So to get the foot shape, we at one point need to turn it. So now it's turned. Rotate it between your fingers just to thin it out, making sure you don't lose, of course, that nice foot. All right, that looks a little bit better. So now we're going to bring this foot out, widen it and flatten it. That's where our toes are going to be. Let's bring in the heel a little bit and create kind of a ankle bone right here that's sticking out. Just kind of roll into it. Soften around, leaving that ankle bone there. This is going to be our left foot. Over here on this side, we need to create an arch. So a great way to start with toes is to actually break the foot into thirds. And then this one right here is going to be our big toe. And then we're going to separate these last two even more. And those are going to become our other toes. Now on the underside of this, we're going to do a little indent underneath these toes. All right, and we're going to draw little nails, little indents for our toenails. This is some vodka. You can use clear vanilla or almond extract, anything that has enough alcohol content in it. Because what we want to do, oh, don't use that brush. What we want to do is brush it onto our legs where leg hair would be. Because what alcohol does is it actually eats away a little bit of the fondant, and then it makes it tacky. It's nice and tacky now, and roll it in these chocolate When you're painting on a cake, especially black onto white, you want to keep a scratch piece right here you can practice lines on before you put them on your cake. Like, are you getting them thin enough? You need to get them thinner. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me recreate this chocolate brownie with peanut butter frosting tarot card from the Food Network Halloween Baking Championship, episode 1. Don't forget to tune in next week, the 12th, for episode 2, and I'll come back here and I will be recreating what I made on that episode as well. I'm just glad I made it through episode 1. Whoo! All right, so let's give this brownie a try. Remembering to crush that salt made a difference. I'm getting that hint of saltiness throughout without it being overpowering. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Let me know if you try the recipe and leave me a comment if there's anything else you want to see. Thanks for watching.